What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am so glad that we're here together, getting ready here for our live session. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. We're looking at Bitcoin this morning, breaking outside the trend line. We have the first line of repair. Bitcoin trading at $35,935 is the bottom in. That's the question a lot of people are probably asking themselves right now as we see the first important repair taking place in a while. Is the bottom in? Let's going to take a look at that together. That's how we're going to start this off. That's how we're going to kick this off as we got the nice blue background here this morning, centered in the bottom left. Is the mic on? The mic is on. Hey, with sound, you know when Jordan starts speaking and the sound's on, something's off, but we got it, and here we go. Listen, let's take a look at this. Let's be really careful. I understand people like seeing the price action that we're seeing today, but at the end of the day, I know you don't want to hear it, but things are very unclear and to continue to be very unclear, okay? It's nice to see the breakout of the clone trend line. This yellow line over here, this area that's been providing resistance for a while. We had that breakout, and that didn't last long, right? We came in for the retest. It never held. It was a false retest. We came back in. We didn't make a new spike low. On the daily low, if you look at the daily chart over here, you can see that we put in a new low, right? And now we seem to be breaking back above. Is the water clear? Is it time to jump in over here? Is it time to like heat up the leverage? By the way, when we talk about trading Bitcoin lightly leveraged, that's experts only, right? What does it mean to be an expert in trading? You know, if you're an expert in trading, first of all, you have a history of being able to profit from the markets. If you're an expert, you know how above all to manage your risk. If you have an expert, you're not asking people such things like, where should my liquidation level be? What should my position size be? When should I be getting in? When should I be getting out? It's extraordinarily dangerous. experts only. If you are looking to trade in and out of Bitcoin, is now a time to be putting on a long trade, right? We take breakouts in the Bitcoin bull market. You know, we don't always wait for the retest and resumption. You can. The thing is that often they don't happen. That's the nuance that cryptocurrency has during the bull market phase compared to other markets such as currency markets, compared to the stocks, stock indices, futures, commodities. You know, it's a little bit different. Should you be taking this breakout this morning, right? A lot of people I've been watching over the last few weeks are you know, they're buying, they're selling, they're buying, they're selling, they're buying, and they keep taking small losses, small gains, getting chopped up out there, right? That's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it is to kind of zoom out, you know, show a little, pick your spots. Is this the spot to be picking? And if you were picking this spot, where would your stop loss be? Do I think the stop loss, do I think the bottom is in? Right? That's the question traders should be asking themselves. If you're taking this breakout today, by the way, as price gets above, and look, the water's not clear for me. We have a lot to get through over here. Look, this middle line over here. I have it solid over there. We at least have to get above that line, which is currently somewhere around, let's call it 40,000. You can see it horizontal, that last swing high we put in. We need to get above this area for things to be looking even slightly better. Right now, things continue to be very uncertain. You have to be very cautious. It's not the time to jump in and you don't have the momentum behind you. Now, the bears just slightly lost a bit of an edge. The bears, as we speak right now, are slightly losing. This was over the weekend was their time. I'm sorry about that. When they rejected the resistance right over here over the weekend, right over here over the weekend, they had the opportunity to bring this down, and they did. It just so happens that this trend line held as support. The breakout retest, we came in for the second retest, and as it was holding, by the way, let me zoom in a little bit. As it was holding, I went ahead and let you know on Twitter over the weekend, look, that's the second retest. We're resuming out of it. It's a good sign, and it's a great sign because, again, it's something that you could easily set your risk off of. Only I don't think it's the time to actually be trading. I think it's the time to be developing your skill set, right? So the bears slightly lost control after this second retest. The retest of this trend line held. They weren't able to bring it down to the new, midterm low. And if they did, we could have saw mid-20s easily and quickly over the weekend with that low volume. Instead, the bulls were able to hold the line over here and bring it back above this trend line. Things looking slightly better this morning. That's an important line. That was an important defense the bulls just put in over here. Now, how much further they can take it, that's another question. That remains to be seen. We don't know yet. Things are very unclear. If I was taking this trade, by the way, right, where would I put my stop loss? Am I going to put my stop loss right below that last swing low, right? That's one option you have. It's a very tight stop loss. I imagine if you're doing something like that, that your target is probably only either into this area of resistance coming up here or the midline. That's where you're first either taking your trade, moving your stop loss to break even, or locking in your profits. Do you go below the last swing low over here? By the way, do you notice the beautiful higher lows being put in? Higher lows being put in. It's very good. We're going to go ahead actually right now in this moment, take the opportunity to draw a trend line from these two higher lows that are being put in. And we're going to just go ahead and make that a little bit darker over there. Actually, the way I wanted to do that was this. I wanted to now take away this trend line over here that we don't need anymore, right? We don't need it anymore because it's held. We had the breakout, this is like the first sign of a repair taking place. We had the breakout, the retest, the resumption off, held by resistance, and then brought down over here. What's going on now? Look, we're going to go ahead and just move this over like this. We're going to move that line over there, connecting the two bottoms, wicks of those lower highs. We're going to go ahead and leave that there for now. That's an important line. By the way, Giles has been really helpful in giving more of a objective way for us to build out our trend lines. If you clone this trend line, by the way, I cloned the wrong one. Bear with me 1 second over here. I want to clone this trend line over here, and I'll just make it darker then. Do you see I already had that light trend line in there that I drew in with you? But I'm cloning that trend line, and I just wanted to show you over here what the market was paying attention to. Do you see where the wicks closed over here? The bodies closed over here. This was then resistance, resistance. The same symmetry taking place. Is it taking place elsewhere down over here? Is it fair to say that again over here we held that support and then that provided resistance? Could you see how that, maybe, I'm not sure, but we're going to leave that line in for now. If we break below this line at any point going forward, that is going to lead to a further leg down. Okay, now look what happened over here. Let me go ahead and get rid of that one. All right, a little jumbled over there. We're gonna find the flow if you're able to go ahead and smash that like button, then I could get going over here, find the flow and keep going and make sure that we have a really important session over here. The title of the session is the bottom in? Is the mid-cycle bottom in? And to be honest, I don't have the answer to that. There's the possibility now that we've broken above this trend line that the bottom is currently in, right? But you have to be playing defense right now. Everything is very, very unclear and continues to be. Now, when we break outside the trend line over here, the most important trend line in crypto, is it a lot safer to say? Is there a greater probability to say that the low is in over here, right? Absolutely. I feel much more confident on the break of the most important trend line in crypto as saying, okay, it looks like 28,500, whatever the case may be, is the low for the mid-cycle dip. And now we're resuming out of there. At this point, why I am hopeful, right? Why I am hopeful that the low is in, it's way too early to call it. You know, the same thing when we broke just a couple of weeks ago or a week, 10 days ago above here, the first thing I said was, listen, things are still not clear. You know, that just because we made a line of repair does not mean that, like, you know, you could go ahead and start like getting aggressive. And no, things are very unclear. I'm buying the dip, right? I bought 39,000. I bought 33,500 dollar cost averaging in mid-cycle, but I'm not getting aggressive over here. I still don't know what the next move is on Bitcoin, right? Now, this was just a small win that took place for the bulls this morning, but it's only a small win, right? This could be rejected. It looks nice. The next thing I want to do is also come over here and connect these two trend lines over there. It's going to be slightly different than I have on my most important trend line. Look, if you come over and I just go straight up, you can see the breakout is around 48,000. Now over here, if you come straight up at 49, it's slightly different. I'm connecting the peaks on this one, but I'm going to leave it in slightly different just as we come close to help me. Look, it's an edge. It's to help you to manage your risk off of, okay? That's all it is. By looking at something from multiple perspectives, you get a better look at it. The beautiful thing about understanding or being able to speak multiple languages is that you get different perspectives of things. You could read the same thought, you know, in different languages from different perspectives, and it builds layers upon it. All right, what's going on over here, everyone? Toyo, great to be here. Thank you for being here. We got to smash the like button. We got to copy the share button. We got to get people, other people understanding what's happening over here so that we could help them. That we could help them stay on the right side in the most important trade that matters. You know, let's keep going over here. We got a lot to talk about this morning. I wanted to go ahead. Yesterday, I've prepared a beautiful session discussing the stock market, another discussing the commodity markets. I'm going to upload those as I develop them and share them with you. I was going to do a whole session this morning just on that alone because I'm so excited about it. But with this important breakout of this repair taking place, I wanted to make sure that we were there together to cover it. Bitcoin up now, 4.75%, breaking above $36,000. And look, it's too soon to call anything. It's too soon to call anything. If you take a rectangle from the current price action that we've been, we're just midway over here. I understand if people are slightly happy today or feeling better than they should be over the weekend if you're a Bitcoin bull, right? And you know, if you're riding the bull of all bulls during the bull market phase, this is a pretty precarious situation over here at the bottom the bottom support is tested of this box. You know, breaking down over there, it could get ugly. It could have got ugly quickly. This is looking a little better just a couple of days later, but it's too soon to decide whether or not the bottom's put in. We will see. It's just a sign of a repair taking place. Bulls like to see that. Today, the Bulls have the upper hand. Yesterday, we were talking about what could possibly drive, what narrative could possibly drive Bitcoin to new all-time highs. Absolutely exceptional video that we did together, the work we put in. And this brought up a really important, deep conversation unexpectedly. Ian was saying, listen, it looks like the US is trying to catch up and become a leader in the Bitcoin mining space. Over the long term, could this be to maintain its global reserve status? Just don't understand why China took this decision. Yeah, wow. You know, I didn't really, take it that far going down the rabbit hole as Ian did over here. And why? Because it does seem that the US is quite supportive of Bitcoin, right? Trying, you could see over here, whether it's through Elon, through Michael Saylor, through the public companies, the public miners in the US, trying to actually bring a foothold of Bitcoin mining space into the US. Could that be because the US really would like to help maintain its global reserve status? I never thought about it like that, but why would China take this decision? Now, I initially thought about that, and I alluded to it a little bit yesterday with you. I talked about how that China's really worried about inflation right now. It was 2 weeks ago on the live stream that I said to you, China's cracking down right now versus the rising inflation prices. This is a threat to their system, right? And you know, so what happened after that? We had the FOMC about a week after. The U.S. did some verbal intervention, you know, and you could see since that a little bit of like, you know, now the market's on edge. Going forward from here, any type of good data, is the Fed tightening, and now you have like more of this balance in the system. I think China, more than Bitcoin, and I think China understands, listen, the miners don't control Bitcoin. It's who's running the nodes. I don't think China really, if China's interested in the bullish case for Bitcoin, I don't think they're really too concerned about mining leaving China. Now, the U.S., on the other hand, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for the U.S. and for institutions and for funds to realize that actually Bitcoin is not bad for the environment, that it incentivizes clean energy. That's really important for the massive amount of money, you know, whether it's from institutions, pensions funds that want to come into the U.S. There's a big shift in how money's raised now in the U.S. and in Europe. And it needs to have this clean energy. Otherwise, you're paying much higher rates for it. So Ted was building off that a little bit further, saying maybe China figured out the Bitcoin's origins. I guess, you know, a guess might be Bitcoin being a CIA or a NATO invention to recode the monetary system. It would explain why Russia's moving towards gold, why China towards the digital yuan, and El Salvador's move to Bitcoin. Perhaps El Salvador is a beta test for the system. Just a guess, right? And then he talked about how he added trend lines. Now, what's funny about El Salvador being a beta test for the system, right? You have some powerful institutions actually behind that move. It wasn't just like, you know, they reached out to Jack Mahler and then Jack Mahler met them in the middle of a field and they talked about like some AME and then like hit it off all wearing hoodies and then decided to like build out the system to save El Salvador. There were some strong institutions out there that, I forget the name, during Mike Saylor's press conference. It was the one he did the interview with the first day. It was a massively good interview. I want to say Mark Raw. I don't know the name. Listen, these people were behind what is taking place. Was it a beta test for the system, you know, underlined from the U.S. government? Or was it a beta test for the system, you know, from institutions who really support Bitcoin? We don't have those answers, you know, but you need to have these discussions. Some deep stuff over there that these two brought up. I'm grateful for everything they do and bring to the table over here. We have 400 likes here this morning as we get going. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to keep going over here so I could get everything in because we do have a training session this morning that I also want to prepare for. This week should bring the biggest difficulty adjustment in Bitcoin's history. This is from Marty Bent, Tales from the Crypt. We are in the midst of a systematic shift in the hash rate that will be written for a decade from now. Listen, I want to share this with you. We're expected to see this week a 25% difficulty adjustment. It could be as high as 30%. Right now, blocks are coming in around 13 minutes and 26 seconds, a little higher. This is amazing. The amount of hash that went off, the amount of hash power that went off from the system so quickly, and how Bitcoin, it doesn't need somebody. There's no centralized party that's making a decision whether or not to lower the difficulty adjustment or raise it. It's all done automatically. Coded monetary supply. Uncle Marty says, listen, the disruption to the hash rate has been material, and it will take time to plug all the machines leaving China back in, more time than much of the market is anticipating. If you thought that all of a sudden those machines were being shipped to the US and or elsewhere and we're going to be coming back online right away, Marty's letting us know that doesn't seem to be the base case. Many of these machines are en route to be plugged in abroad as we speak. However, the amount of available capacity to take on these miners across the United States and across the world is extremely limited. It will take a considerable amount of time, 12 to 18 months, to build out the necessary capacity to get all these machines back up and running. Good insight over here. I love Matt Odell and Marty Bent and all they add to the space. I'm big fans for a while. And this brings us back over here to Bitcoin. Let's take a look what's going on. Ted also added, by the way, Ted shared with me yesterday an article that he posted on Real Vision Exchange about 4 months ago, right? And he was talking about in this article, I'll pull it up over here. He was talking about, as he's been following, tracking Bitcoin price prediction since September 2020. And he thought he'd share a summary of the data that he collected surveying people. He has, projections to 2037, but focused on the next 4 years. Want to take a look at it with you really quick because it's important. The article, by the way, fantastic. And in the article, he shares this model that he was developing back then. It's really important. I'm going to share with you right now why, right? This model uses diminishing returns, right? And you know what? If we're entering a diminishing returns, a la Bitcoin $160,000 area, we'll know going forward, right, to rather give it a higher probability of that continuing. If we see diminishing returns, which is definitely not my base case at all, but if we see diminishing returns this cycle, then going forward, a model like this that Ted developed quite a while ago is going to become, let me go ahead and just zoom in for it with you. A model like this that Ted developed well before even understanding I believe what we're doing over here at CTM would be really beneficial, leaning off of the phenomenal work that Ted continues to do over here. Really important. Now, what was I saying? It's the same target, right? His model, the 160,000, that's the same, the area that back in the late 2019, 2020 predictions that I was using, his original model would be super helpful. It wasn't until later that I began shifting my focus, right? Listen to this, what Ted was saying. I don't think Ted was following this back then. He's become such an important part of the community, adding so much collective knowledge. We're going to show you what he's been working on in a little bit. The mathematician in me says diminishing returns should happen based on a sorry for my pronunciation, a log regression. The engineer in me uses a log regression as a guide and adds other factors aligning to the CTM model highs, but sets my position targets. Listen to this. But sets my position targets based on the worst case performance, 160,000. If Bitcoin does better, great. If not, then my first Bitcoin cycle goal is hit. It will provide financial independence for my wife and I. In the next Bitcoin cycle, I'm hoping to build wealth to help my extended family if I cannot convince them to save enough cash to purchase Bitcoin at the next cycle low. Conquering the markets all day long, conquering the markets principles. It's amazing what we do here with the conquering market strategy, with the conquering the markets method, but also the principles reaching out to all areas of everyone's life. And it's people who hold these principles that are attracted to who we are and what we do. Do you remember for how long right? I always said, listen, using diminishing returns, this is back in 2019 when I'm presenting the bullish case to Bitcoin for you. I said, listen, 160,000, that's the target, diminishing returns, but 140,000, that's mission accomplished. Everything above is going to be the whipped cream with the hot fudge, caramel, and sprinkles, right? If you exit within 20% of the top, that's the cherry. I'm going to do my best to exit the top. Nothing's changed. Look over here. When I put this out over here, November 13th, 2019, by the way, Bitcoin was trading at $7,000. In the title, I had to put things out like 55,000 to 130,000 because people were not ready to comprehend those type of numbers. Now, in the video itself, I'm talking about 150, 160,000. But imagine this, the psychological makeup of people and investors. I knew at Bitcoin trading at $7,000, I could not put out some ridiculous numbers to you. People wouldn't believe them. Things have changed.
Now, these things tend to sometimes overshoot themselves. It's possible that as soon as you pass $100,000, that $200,000, $250,000 does come really quick.
Let's take a look at what Tim, Ted, excuse me, Ian, Ted, Bob. Listen, this model, again, if at the end of this cycle, because we don't know what's going to happen, if we see that this model holds and we are seeing diminishing returns, this will be the model that would become the primary model. Because the way I did it was just very like elementary. I was just like, look, the 2016 cycle had 1/3 the return of the 2012 cycle. If we had 1/3 the return again, that puts us at $160,000. Very, very simple. But sometimes simplicity is the most elegant solution. Now, Ted has something that really works out, something that I could visualize, something that we could really lean into if that's what we're seeing. Not my base case right now. My base case going forward is that what we continue to see is that the 2020 cycle happens to be an average of the previous two cycles, an average to the upside in volatility than the previous cycle, but less than the first cycle, 2012. On the downside, again, almost an exact average, and also how it consolidates. That's how I think that we continue out from here. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Look, let me just play what I have here for you 1 second.
Things that I'm going to do my best to get out towards the top, but it will not be at 140,000 or anything like that. That's where we're expected to overshoot.
Right?
That should be around where the high is.
Listen, 140,000 mission accomplished. We said it so many times from the very beginning. Make sure, and this was prior to the halving, that everything works out, that if we hit 140,000 on Bitcoin, all your goals are accomplished. But we're going to be following price and price action to do our best to get at the top. And things changed. Things changed right around here. This was at the end of December 2020. If you remember, my price target was around 18,000. I want to put out something that's going to be achieved. And I said months, many months in advance, listen, I don't know when you could find it over here on the playlist. Whenever I said, I think 18,000, but we were trading much higher than that. We were seeing accelerating price behavior. It became noticeable that this cycle was not underperforming the previous cycle. It was outperforming the previous cycle, right? And then things continued to develop for me. It was over here around March that I put out what my price prediction for this cycle is. It's the same thing. We're going to show the models in a second. It winds up being the same thing. I got there a different way using charts, BTCs, all the charts that he illustrates for us and puts out. By the way, before we go any further, let's listen to some head snack. As it is Tuesday over here, it is Taco Tuesday.
Analyzing the charts, hitting projected targets within the margin. Find the flow, sip the matcha, and wait for the waves to come in with lobsters. The kind-hearted Jordan Fosters, working smarter, not harder to move the markers. On his way to conquer, trading and investing, drinking the coffee while reflecting on the blessing. The markets are not crashing, the prices might be slashing just to pretend they're in fashion.
All right. Oh, I love it. I love the honeymoon. All right. There's some really good questions. I'm going to get to them a little bit later. Wes's question over here. Look, Wes, I'll bring that back up a little bit later as we get to something, as we close out the session, because this comment will fit right perfectly in. Let me go ahead and what happened over there. Let me fit this up over there. We got 1,300 people in here, 545 likes. That's pretty good ratio. That's a strong ratio. It seems that people are enjoying the session over here. If you do, if you learn anything, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're watching this on the replay, do go ahead and smash the like button over here. Trish is asking, by the way, to finish over here, right? Could diminishing returns, could the fact that there are already 18.5 million of the 21 million Bitcoin already created cause the halving to have less impact in the future? It's an interesting thought, right? It's an interesting thought. I've never thought about that. I don't really have the answer. I'm going to say no for this reason, Trish, that what happens is that the market over those 210,000 blocks, goes through that bull supply shock mania, and then it leads into a euphoric move that causes the market crash, and then for it to, to level out and accumulate before it runs the next halving. It's the supply shock, and it will always be a supply shock because the market has created equilibrium for the current supply that the miners are taking in. Now, of course, it gets complicated. The miners are going to be making more money from fees. Listen, if you want to get into that type of stuff, follow Marty Bent and Matt Odell and the stuff they do on Tales from the Crypt. They really get into, the technicals of it. It's important to understand and know. Marty just said in that article we looked at earlier, and Marty, he knows what's up. He's being, look, I didn't understand that there was a max to the downside of the difficulty adjustment and to the upside, 75% on the downside, 400% on the upside. He showed the code, right? He said, you learn something new about Bitcoin every day. And that's the case over here. That's the case over here. Wes, we'll talk about that other question in 1 second. I want to continue over here, following what's going on. Raul, right, is saying that he feels like, this current cycle is resembling 2013 to him, that we're mid-cycle correction. Again, people that have a habit of being correct, or let's say lately, continuing to have, the same awareness that we have. There's no one that I understand or follow or would lean to or look to that thinks that the top is in. Now, is it possible the top of the market's in? Anything's possible, right? We're not going to get into that now as we're breaking out of this repair, right? We could at another time, if we're rejected by the most important trend line in crypto, by the way, if let's say we're rejected over here, and then we come back down, and then we take out the low over here, we're going to have to greatly consider the price action, what's going on, and make sure that we're able to have the awareness we need going forward. That's for a different day, a different time. I want to keep going over here and focus on what is going on. And that's with what Ted has been doing over here with the help of Ian, right? With the help of myself. You could see over here, we're not ready to present it. Just want to fill you in over here because it's been a while, right? Looking to put together the CTM collective model. Ted has been absolutely outstanding. Look what he's done over here. He has stock to flow overlaid over here. He's got the trend lines, the log scale trend lines that we've added in rainbow fashion. Again, always just taking it a step above and a step beyond over here. Ian and I have been pretty, let's say not adamant, but aware, because we went from lining things up from the halving, following the halving tracker, really helping us get that clarity we need. And without it, we wouldn't have got as far as we've gotten. And then it seemed pretty clear that, listen, once price makes the new all-time high, it's important to be lining things up from the new all-time high. You see from the price, in the 2012 here in light green and the 2016 in dark green, I said, light blue, dark blue. You see that if you line them up from the new all-time high, they're not here, right? But if you do line them up from the, then all of a sudden they peak at the same time. That's important, about 150 days from the time they make that new all-time high into the close. But I think my timing is right there. Don't quote me on that. Ian, correct me on that if I'm wrong. Listen, we think that as we make the mid-cycle dip, it's a good idea to line them up. What Ted is pointing out, and with high accuracy, look at this current cycle, it seems to be tracking as it outperforms in the beginning, the 2012 cycle, the 2013 bull market very closely up until about this area when it starts aligning very closely with the 2016 bull market, right? Is it possible that now aligning them from the low they just put in last week is the way? We don't know. We're trying to figure out a couple of things. We're not trying to put out a model that we could say, listen, this is the model, and that we're just going to defend it no matter what. That's not what we want. We just want the most accurate model we could follow. Could you follow something like stock to flow and be in the general like neighborhood? Yes, right? We're looking to go beyond that. We're looking for the greatest accuracy that we could have throughout these cycles, right? Now, we're not trying to time anything down to the day or anything like that. We're looking to know whether or not we're things are, what I mean by that is over here in this current cycle, we were outperforming the previous two cycles. The model wasn't broken at that point, right? And if we start underperforming over here in this area, it doesn't mean the model's broken. All it means is that we have a third cycle, going forward, a larger area to make sure that we see where the overlap between the three cycles will be, where the variations are to the outside. It's just a guide to help us. But if we can get it right, if we could get the best model to follow, that's what we want to do. That's what CTM is here for. It's working together to bring before us the highest accuracy that we can do. And by the way, that doesn't mean that like, if there's something happening that's, first of all, you have to know when you're wrong. You have to know when you're wrong and when your model's irrelevant, whether that means reverting back to Ted's model, right? Using diminishing returns, or whether that means going to someone else's model that's using lengthening cycles, or someone that's just using something like, super cycle. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that we're on the right side. And that's what we're going to continue to do over here. Grateful for all the work, all the precision that Ted, that Ian keep helping us with. Really phenomenal stuff over here. And that's where we're going. Also, big shout out to Misconfig, right? You have to follow him on Twitter. We did the video. If you haven't watched the video, he put on the channel. His work is absolutely, I really enjoy following him on Twitter. If you're following Conquering the Markets, you got to follow his work over here. I love how he added this new line in over here. Look over this. He's added, let's see over here. He has the 2-year moving average in green, right? And then he has that, I believe, times 5. Let me go ahead and see what a 5x multiple of that 2-year over here in red. It's a really good, let's say, indicator to have on your chart to know not only two things, to know when you should be accumulating Bitcoin, right, in those green areas. If you're dollar cost averaging, this is the place really to begin accumulating. This is the place that really you lean into Bitcoin. And then you have over here when price gets oversold into the greed areas to be looking for taking that profit. Again, all the work that he constantly puts out is high quality. Make sure you follow him, Conquering the Markets all day long. There's a lot of people putting out a lot of information, right? We have people now talking about how Bitcoin's going to be trading down to $10,000 and it could linger there for years. You want to be aware of all possibilities, but you want to follow people who have been giving the highest signal with the greatest accuracy for the longest time. Some people jump in and the guy called the high mid-cycle and now he's calling the low. Yeah, but where was he for the past year and a half before that? You want to follow people that are giving the highest signal for the longest time with the greatest consistency. There's something else, 10,000 Bitcoin. Oh, let's point it out as we talk about it. Bitcoin has never broken, right, to an all-time high, gone 3x over it as it has now from the all-time high, and then gone ahead and taking out that all-time high. If we were to trade, below the last all-time high, 19,400, something's radically different. It could happen. We could trade down to $10,000 by the way, that would be well outside the bottom trend line we're looking at over here. Even an anomaly such as the crisis we saw, the dollar liquidity crisis in March 2020, did not take us below that line. Do you think, now could something happen? Is it possible right now, as China just took all of their mining offline, right? And we get the difficulty adjustment to the downside, the greatest one in Bitcoin's history, that all of a sudden China goes ahead and puts back all those miners back online and attempts a 51% attack on Bitcoin? Yep. Would they be successful doing it? Probably. What will happen going forward? We'll see what the honey badger does. We don't know, but there are things that could happen that could, produce another anomaly. The greatest risk I look for an anomaly is what every anomaly has been. It has been caused by some type of friction inside the traditional monetary system. It's why I'm always looking to the Fed and seeing what the Fed's doing, because I believe the Fed continues to be the greatest risk to Bitcoin at all times, right? So, and again, that's near-term risk. That's near-term risk because every time the Fed's response needs to be what? They break the system. They got to come and inject massive amounts of liquidity, and Bitcoin, boom, So those things are temporary. That's why I say my stop loss is 0. And for other reasons I've talked about, on my spot position. Now, Wes is wondering, right, if Bitcoin is able, to peak out over here, make that $140,000 mission accomplished goal. I'm not selling at $140,000. I'm selling the top as best I can. Price comes up. Do I move my stop loss away from 0? Right? Look, we're going to be talking about, as I exit Bitcoin, if I'm exiting Bitcoin, when the top of the cycle, when I believe we're at the very top of the cycle, it will be massively clear, by the way. That's something that the title of the video will be like, this is the top of Bitcoin. No one will get it wrong. Everyone's going to make sure that communication is crystal clear. What I'm going to be doing at the particular point, I don't know. It's dependent on a lot of things, including what happens, with the legislation passed for the capital gains tax rate in the United States. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. As we get there, I'll let you know, but I'm undecided and I'm open to what's happening in the market. The possibility, remains that at some point in time, I decide I'm never selling my Bitcoin and I only borrow against it during bear market lows. I don't know, or I might deploy multiple strategies, selling a portion, buying back in the low. Either which way, I'm going to be pointing out the lows and the highs and making sure I have that accuracy to do that. We're going to end it on this, some important stuff over here, some quick thoughts, right? This is some quick thoughts for refining and presenting our CTM message more clearly. The reason I want to share this with you, in case there's any comments, in case people are able to provide any comments, that are watching on the replay, as this is a group effort over here. You observe the markets through the lens of price action and the trends formed by price. You have seen how euphoria and panic move markets by trading crashes and bubbles. In CTM, we focus, this is so important, on building collective intelligence to read the markets and stay on the right side. Again, and it comes from so many different areas, right? And that's what's awesome about CTM lately. It's like we have these different pockets of nodes, right? You got Heath over here and Brandon doing some phenomenal stuff, right? You got Alan AU on Twitter. You got Miss Config over on Twitter. You got Ted and Ian working together on the modeling with me. And then you have other people adding to that in the Discord. Everything's taking place on Discord. Ted's watching it. Ted's like, wait a second, let me pick up on this from Jesse, this from this person. And then let's add this to our view of the model. And when we present, we'll make sure to let you know what those little things were. And we have all these pockets of people. We have Giles working with the CTM strategy and principles, redefining how to place those trend lines so that we could use the CTM setups off of them. It's absolutely brilliant stuff that's taking place Justin working out and taking from the course and then putting it together in real time, showing people how he's entering his trades and why, putting up, it's absolutely amazing, right? So iron sharpens iron. A critical element of this is identifying relatively rare occasions when market psychology is in a euphoria or panic. These are waves that can move accounts more than grinding, trending, or flat markets 50 hours a week. It's a lot easier by changing your time preference and learning how, in these euphoric moments, taking profits and then waiting for the panic moments, buying, being precise. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to put the time in to stay in the flow of the market, but grinding it out there, trying to place, 5 trades a day, that's tough, man. That's being a slave to the screen, a slave to the markets. That doesn't offer you freedom. And it's a lot more effective doing less, but having it more effective. A dramatic move may end with the ability to buy tremendous assets at a discount or sell assets at a premium. Buy off support, sell off resistance. Again, Bitcoin is an important asset for humanity. Bitcoin is an important asset for humanity. Decentralized, open monetary network. Selling is not something most people in conquering the markets would take lightly. But as students of the market and market psychology, we can identify euphoria and trend breaks. 4-year cycle, halving cycle, lengthening cycle, almost doesn't matter. This is so important. When the euphoria comes, you will be there. You are going to track the models and have some bias to help us navigate, but you will only sell into euphoria, not selling mid-cycle. Not selling mid-cycle. If anyone has any comments to build off that, please share them in the comments below on the YouTube video, on the replay. I'm very interested in them. I'm going to play some honeymoon over here, some honeymoon vocals. Make sure that there's no comments that we need to come back to and focus in on. I'll follow up with just a little review of price, and then I'm going to go ahead and prepare for the live FX session. All right, quick question over here about Grayscale unlocking a lot of shares next week. Listen, we talk about the collective brain, the collective knowledge of conquering the markets. Alan Au on Twitter, follow what he's doing. He's the greatest resource that I know for something like this. He's already put out, go to his profile author and find the thread he did on this. That's what you want to find. That signal all day long. What else? There was something I wanted to talk about. Boom, 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 boom. Thank you all the moderators, though. Thank you to the moderators. Really grateful for it. There was something else in here. Anthony was wondering what's going on here. Can we take a look at the precious metals? Let's do that really quick. The reason I didn't get into that because we're going to be doing a Forex session in a little bit. But let's take a look at what's going on over here. We see the dollar, the DXY is pretty strong coming out of that downward sloping channel. The dollar breaking out over here. It's working towards this area of resistance. It's obviously not yields today that are causing the precious metals to trade off of. They're in the mid-center of our bull flag. What is causing this to the breakdown? Listen, how about this? I'm going to be very clear. I don't know. All is that I do know is that after price broke down from our trend line, like we took, entries, exits, price broke down, and I was like, it's too soon to enter, right? We just had a really massive damage done. Even though you're into that line of support, it's too soon to enter. We need to see some repairs first, and that we can make another leg down. Look, we're just, maybe we're just taking out stops here. Maybe this support winds up holding. This could just be a liquidity event. I don't know. It's too soon. There's no reason to be buying precious metals here. There are no technical indications to be buying them or to be a hero. Also on silver, we said that we got to get, if you were aggressive, we said, and it's probably too soon, but it was above the resistance over here. It never happened. You're seeing again that next leg down taking place. Whether or not this is just some stop hunting that's taking place, because that's where a lot of traders will be putting their stops. We don't know yet. We'll find out in the sessions ahead. Look, because of what took place down here, there's no reason to be a hero. Give it some time. Now that we're putting in another swing high and being rejected over here, maybe, and I'm not ready yet, maybe we could start putting in some lines of repair and watching. I'm still observing. And when it's time to attack, we'll be there and we'll again, just as we did over here, we'll put out a special video. Now's the time to buy, right? Now is not the time to buy. Now's the time to be on the defensive and, wait for further clarity. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing in this. I hope you have a beautiful day. I'm going to cut this right here so I go ahead and prepare for our FX session. I'm just going to finish with the end of the honeymoon over here. Thank you for all your amazing work and everything that you add to this community. Gene, thank you so much. The same. Lots of love to everyone. Have a beautiful day. We're going to go out with a Bitcoin chart as it deserves it up here, putting in a nice session up 5.5%. Bitcoin closing right now as we close the session at $36,402. Have a beautiful day, everyone. If you haven't yet, please go ahead and break that button. Copy and paste the share button, let other people know about what we got going on over here. Have a beautiful day, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.